Hello readers, I'm the Avid Reader and today we're reviewing 11/22/63, written by Stephen King in 2011. So this is Stephen King's alternative history book on how could we have stopped the JFK assassination through time travel and what would be the consequences, and that's really the last part. Mainly, this book is about 5 years of someone from the future in 2011 being in the past between 1958 and 1963, and we can see the dynamics of this era. So the book has 6 different parts. It's about 740 pages with medium-sized letters, so a bit more than half the size of it, you could say. Before the parts we get introduced, there's an introduction where we learn that the main character, Jake Epping, he's reading an essay written by his janitor who wants to get his GED since he never got that. And he's reading this essay about murder, about a family man killing his family. We learn that Jake Epping never cries and that he's divorced from his wife who was an alcoholic. Part 1 of the story, it's in 2011. We see Jake Epping hanging out with the janitor, Harry Dunning, who's an old man. People mock him because he's handicapped. We later learn that in the past, when he was young as a child during Halloween, his father hurt him badly with a sledgehammer and killed his whole family otherwise. So Harry Dunning being the only survivor. So they go to a diner, eat out and have fun. And then the diner's owner, Al Templeton, calls upon Jake Epping and summons him to the diner. Jake hesitates, but he goes in anyways. So Al Templeton tells him to do some different things. He takes him into the pantry and to take a few steps backwards. And when he does this, Jake Epping finds himself in the past, specifically September 9th, 1958, so about 5 years before Kennedy is killed. So he spends an hour there, talks to some local people, I think buys himself a drink. I think he starts using here his pseudonym when he's in the past, George Emerson. Of course, when he's arrived there, he first meets this wino beggar guy called the Yellow Card Man, and he has to give him a dime or something. And not long after, Jake Epping returns to the present. This is where Al Templeton explains all of this to him, all of these different things. So Al Templeton, since the last time Jake Epping has seen him, seems to have aged 4 years. That's because when you go in the past, it's always on the same date, but only 2 minutes have passed when you return to the present. It turns out Al Templeton spent 4 years in the past or something like that. So he saved a girl's life who was shot by a hunter by accident by just striking up a conversation with the hunter and not letting him get into the shooting range where he would have shot the girl by accident. But each time you go into the past, the things that were done previously are reset. So it turns out this girl who has previously been handicapped is handicapped again because of Jake Epping inadvertently going into the past. So Al Templeton starts talking about JFK and that he was killed, and this takes, I think, about 50 pages or so into the book to learn about JFK. It's talking about JFK, and of course, according to them, it's Lee Harvey Oswald who killed them, and Occam's razor, the simplest solution is the truest one, and the conspiracy theorists of the CIA or the mafia being involved to kill Kennedy. Stephen King lays it out very clearly that 98% probably isn't true, so Lee Harvey Oswald was just a crazy loner who killed Kennedy. And Al Templeton will die soon, so he can't redo this journey, but he suggests to Jake Epping to do so. In part 2, Jake Epping returns to the past and starts stalking Frank Dunning, who is Al Dunning's father, as an experiment because he knows Frank Dunning killed his own family and handicapped Harry Dunning. So Jake Epping, now George Emerson, seeks to prevent this. So he does some stalking, he asks a bit too many questions, he talks to some betting odds guy, Jew, who's Frank Anichetti. He also talks to Bill Turcotte, who's some guy who seems to be more normal since Jake Epping has traveled to Derry, Maine. Now, if you've read it, you know that Derry, Maine is screwed up, and we know clearly that this book is connected to it, since during this book, Jake Epping meets up with a couple of the Losers Club from it, if you know that reference, Beverly Marsh and Richie Tozier, and he talks to them a bit, and apparently the clown is gone, but it isn't really. So yeah, we know that these books are connected, and this 1958 is right after the clown was killed in it. So that's an interesting little Easter egg. So Jake Epping follows Frank Dunning, and on the eve of Halloween, when Frank Dunning was going to kill his family, Jake Epping plans to stop him with a gun and kill him, I think. The hero of the scene, but then he meets Bill Turcotte, who is part of the obdurate past, who's trying to stop him from doing this, as it turns out that Frank Dunning has killed Bill Turcotte's sister and nephew. There's an argument between the two of them. Jake Epping goes to the attack, enters the room, tries to stop Frank Dunning. He's grazed in the head with some sledgehammer. One of the boys of the family's head is crushed. One of the children is handicapped, I think Ellen. Bill Turcotte comes in with a knife, and Frank Dunning is both stabbed and shot, and then he dies. And Bill Turcotte, he has a heart attack. Jake Epping leaves, disappears from the town, and goes back to the present. So he calls up the sister of Harry Dunning, asks about Harry, and it turns out that Harry Dunning, who previously was crippled, now has died in the Tet Offensive during the Vietnam War. So here we can see some of the effects of changing history, that you have unintended consequences that can be negative sometimes. And Jake Epping is angry at Al Templeton, who's getting really sick. So he goes to his house and he finds Al Templeton overdosed on drugs, and he has written a note on "Save JFK because the future will be so much greater, no war of Vietnam, no killing of RFK or Martin Luther King. The world will be so much better if Kennedy hadn't been killed." So Jake Epping reluctantly goes back to the past, and this is part 3 of the story, living in the past. So first of all, he decides, okay, I'm gonna kill Frank Dunning. He goes to where Frank Dunning's parents' graves is. He waits for Frank Dunning, asks him a question of what is most important to a man. Frank Dunning replies his family, and then Jake Epping proceeds to shoot him and hides the body kind of and gets rid of the gun and leaves Derry. He travels for Florida, I think. He gets a teaching job there, and he starts making some bets with some bookie, and he wins. But then he starts getting worried that this bookie is connected to the mafia. He's gonna have him killed or something like that. He's called My Yankee. He loses some bets on purpose and then leaves Florida. And while calling a librarian in Florida, it turns out that the motel or place he stayed at has been burned down. So he was almost killed by the past and this bookie and these mobsters guys. He goes to Jody, Texas. He gets a teaching job. Here he meets Miss Mimi and Deke Simmons, who is the principal of Jody's high school. He becomes a teacher there, and he also organizes plays. So he convinces a promising student, Mike Coleslaw, to participate in a play. Mike Coleslaw is a great actor. And we get to hear of the love interest in the story. And when do we get to learn about her? We get to learn about her about 280 pages in. So yes, Stephen King takes his time with some things, but he doesn't do it badly. That's what's great about Stephen King. You wait for a lot of things, but it's fine. He doesn't drag on. It's actually entertaining, the lead up. So they dance together, I think, they have fun. And part 4 is about his relationship with Sadie, but also spying on Oswald. And here's a little fact in history. Before Lee Harvey Oswald tried to shoot Kennedy, if we believe that, he tried to kill General Edwin Walker, which was a World War II hero, but he was a segregationist. And Lee Harvey Oswald is a communist, so he has plans of killing Edwin Walker, and he's influenced by this rich guy, German-American guy, George de Moreschild, who suggests to Lee Harvey Oswald maybe he should shoot Edwin Walker or something like that. Someone should kill him. We get to see the dynamics of the Oswald family. We know that Lee Harvey Oswald beat his wife Marina sometimes, so that's a bit sad. You've got this Russian girl who doesn't speak that well English, and she has fun with the Russian emigres there, but Lee Harvey Oswald doesn't really like them because they're bourgeois middle class guys. But he enjoys talking with George de Moreschild, who isn't a communist, but he enjoys indulging in Lee Harvey Oswald's stupidity. So Lee Harvey Oswald has been in the Soviet Union previously. He has returned. He talks about how great Castro's Cuba is. Kennedy becomes president. Oh yeah, by the way, a bunch of years move on. So we focus on some specific months, and then Stephen King skips basically a few years or a few months sometimes. Skims them over quickly. Sadie and Jake Epping are dating. It turns out that Sadie is getting a divorce from this John Clayton guy, who is this religious weirdo. He has a broom in the bed between him and her, and he's afraid of sex and things like that. So yeah, she doesn't really like her previous husband, and her family is very weird. But eventually, Sadie and Jake Epping breaks up when Jake Epping slips, and remember, this is George Emerson. He starts singing some tune that doesn't yet exist in the 60s. So they break up. But during the Cuban Missile Crisis, you had a lot of people who were stressed out, a bunch of suicide and things like that. And Sadie Dunhill has been influenced by John Clayton and others, who almost kill herself with pills because she thinks that the world is going to end with the Cuban Missile Crisis. She's been with some politician assistant guy. But Jake Epping reveals to her some things of the future and predicts some things that happen in the following days and weeks. That brings her back to normal, and they get back together, and they enjoy sleeping a lot together, so that's fun for Jake Epping. They go to this little cottage place where they have fun regularly. Towards the end of the fourth part, Jake Epping is going to find out whether Harvey Oswald was acting alone by checking out if he's going to try to kill Edwin Walker alone, because he wants to set aside these conspiracy theories. He gets a call from John Clayton, who turns out to have entered Sadie Dunhill's home and threatens to kill her, and he says he's going to either kill her or he's going to kill Jake Epping. By the way, something I forgot to mention is Miss Mimi is dead, so Dick Simmons has been in Mexico for a while, but has returned as a retired principal. Now you've got Miss Ellie, but anyways, Jake Epping calls up Dick Simmons, tells him, let's take down this John Clayton guy. Jake Epping arrives armed, strapped with a gun. There's a fight. John Clayton, he cuts the cheek of Sadie Dunhill open to here, so he really screws up her face, but he loses in the fight against the two men, so he slits his own throat. So yeah, pretty blood pumping stuff in the finale of this fourth part. So we're unsure if Lee Harvey Oswald is acting alone or not. And Jake Epping, he has wiretapped Lee Harvey Oswald, so he hears a bunch of the conversations between him and Moore and Shield and all these things and the pro-communist, anti-American stuff. To make sure that Lee Harvey Oswald is acting alone, Jake Epping, George Emerson, disguises himself as someone from the CIA, I think, and he calls up George Morenshield, and they meet up, and he questions him and kind of threatens him also with a gun to make sure that the Morenshield stopped his association with Lee Harvey Oswald, and it turns out that George Morenshield just enjoyed listening to the crazy Lee Harvey Oswald, so that closes the window of uncertainty that Lee Harvey Oswald was acting alone. It's pretty sure now, 99% that he acted alone, according to the story anyway. Jake Epping is having fun with Sadie Dunhill. The days are moving on, and then a few weeks or a few months before the Kennedy assassination, and taking into account Jake Epping has been living in different places in Texas and creating lies and half-lies and things like that, he comes home to some place in Dallas, Texas, who's similar to Derry and bad, I think. He is followed by some mobsters, bookie types, who beat him up very badly because this Gutierrez guy in Florida really has become crazy, and he wants Jake Epping killed, but they don't kill Jake Epping. Instead, they hurt him very, very badly. They caused him some amnesia, hit him hard in the head, beat him up very badly. So he's treated at the hospital, he's recovering. Sadie Dunhill and Dick Simpsons know some of the things related to this conspiracy plot thing, so they are trying to get his memory back. Jake Epping is treated eventually, he has a limp now. Part 5, we've got this 11/22/63 is the showdown, Kennedy showdown. He wants to act alone, but on the 22nd of November 1963, Sadie Dunhill shows up, so they go together to Dallas, Texas to stop the Kennedy assassination. Jake Epping is armed again, but limping again. They steal a couple cars, go to the building where Lee Harvey Oswald is, talk to the doorkeeper, say his name. The doorkeeper lets them in. They go to the top of the building. It's a race between the two of them. Jake Epping is faster. He comes up to Lee Harvey Oswald, tells him to stop. Lee Harvey Oswald hesitates but decides to shoot anyway, but misses his shot. Jake Epping fires a couple of bullets but misses. Lee Harvey Oswald switches his rifle and tries to shoot Jake Epping, but he hits Sadie Hill, killing her. And Jake Epping has really fallen in love with Sadie Hill, but despite this, he doesn't cry here again. He's very angry. But Lee Harvey Oswald, he is gunned down by the police downstairs, and it's over. And that's part 5 with Jake Epping, who has been wounded, and Sadie Dunhill, who's dead. And Lee Harvey Oswald is dead, of course. Part 6, which is the Green Card Man. You get to see Jake Epping, alias George Amberson, being interrogated by the police, the FBI, by this Holsty, James Holsty or something like that. And he has an alibi, he makes a bunch of stuff up. The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover kind of know he's lying, but he is released from the jail. He goes home sleeping. He's a national hero, so is Sadie Dunhill, but she's dead anyway. At 9 p.m, this James Holsty shows up at his house and they discuss different things relating to this case. FBI knows he's full of crap, but the media, it's not in their personal interest to find out too much about the truth, because this is a bunch of conspiracy theories that may be formed because of all of these things. And the Kennedys have been saved. Both John Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy have called him to thank him, and Jackie Kennedy was especially moving. But James Holsty says, "We know you work for someone or something, so go back to the place you came from. Leave, we're going to give you a window. You're supposed to make a press conference tomorrow. We're gonna delay that so you can disappear." And he agrees. He leaves, takes a bus away from there, travels back to Maine, and this is where he has met a new man, the Green Card Man, because when he arrived initially in 1958, I think I forgot to mention it, the Yellow Card Man who had turned black had slit his throat also. A lot of throat slitting for some reason in his book. But this new Green Card Man tells him the past doesn't want to be changed, it's obdurate. Now return to the future and see what you have caused, because there has been a tsunami already that's killed a bunch of people, I think, in California. So he returns to the present and he sees that Maine is a lot worse than it has previously been. There are some skinheads who are about to attack an old man, which turns out to be Harry Dunning, who's in a wheelchair, and Jake Epping scares them away. They go to his house and Harry Dunning explains to him, oh yeah, Al Templeton's diner is gone, by the way. Harry Dunning explains to him a lot of changes in history. So the changes in history have been for the worse. No Civil Rights Act, as Kennedy was re-elected, not Johnson. George Wallace, he is elected, so the Dixiecrat, that guy was killed, but he nuked North Vietnam anyways. There's been a nuclear war between India and Pakistan. There's been some nuclear explosion of the plant in Vermont, I think it was. Maine has decided to join Canada. Hillary Clinton is president during this time. Ronald Reagan was elected president earlier. A bunch of stuff had happened. In general, bad. John Kennedy's popularity has declined a lot since he grew old. And he failed with the Civil Rights Act and things like that. So things have gone for the worse. So Jake Epping, listening to the advice of the cardman, decides to return to the past one last time and undo this stuff. He spends his time in the past. He's writing his memoir. So I think this book is actually his fictional memoir. Returns to the present. He hasn't dared to change anything in the past, because there's been a ripple effect, there's gonna be a ripple effect, and all these past changing things are making the world become crazy. So he's returned to the present and things are back to normal mostly, or go, he's a stranger in his own world now, in a sense. But the nuclear waste and everything like that, that's gone now. So things are returned to normal mostly. Of course, he doesn't know where Harry Dunning is and things like that. He tries to find out what has happened to Sadie Dunhill. She's back alive now. Kennedy's dead, of course. So the book ends with him having undone his journey and meeting up with Sadie Dunhill, who's been a small local politician and has done some charity work. And he dances with her. So she's old and he's middle-aged. And yeah, kind of a happy ending. Although it's very the end that's happy. The almost ending is a bad one. So we can see here, time traveling to change history, they have consequences. This is Stephen King's multiverse, so yeah, his take on alternative history, don't change it. Otherwise things may be a lot worse. So that is 11/22/63. So what would the average reader rate this novel? I would give it a 9 out of 10. So to talk about this book, you could compare it to It if you want to. The thing with It is, it has a lot of great moments, but it has a lot of boring moments. Imagine 11/22/63 being like It, a lot of good passages, but 11/22/63 doesn't feel to have a lot of filler and a bunch of boring stuff that you wanna skip. So the reason 11/22/63 is a great book, it's a 9 out of 10, is that it moves along the story. It's very interesting to read, all this conspiracy stuff. You're not really bored any moment. It's well written. It's Stephen King, of course. So far, this is my first favorite Stephen King book, behind Shining and Misery, and this is a 9 out of 10, so a lot lower. Yes, it's interesting to see how Stephen King takes on alternative history and the Kennedy assassination and things like that, and it's a bunch of conspiracy theories, him ignoring it, and also exploring the world of between 1958 and 1963, and we kind of get to compare that a little bit with 2011. So that was a very interesting read. It's a page turner many times. So yes, you want to learn about the Kennedy assassination, the context around it, not really the things that would happen after. What if Kennedy survived? That was negative in this book. I think it was a very pessimistic view of what would happen if John Kennedy would survive, but this is the multiverse, so who cares? Stephen King is not known to be positive. But if you want to learn about the Kennedy assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald and things like that, and you want to get a perspective that's mainstream kind of, without the conspiracy stuff, read 11/22/63. Even if you want to read about 1958 to 63, there you've got it. You can read this book to know how it was about 60 years ago, the days and relationships and how things have changed since then. So, great book. Definitely recommend you to read it. So, this was the Avid Reader's review of 11/22/63, written by Stephen King in 2011. It got a 9 out of 10 rating. I hope you readers enjoyed this book review, and I will see you readers next time.